What's going on in this image? It's so dark I can't see anything. Everything seems to be hidden in the shadows. What an incredible name for a presentation, Hidden in the Shadows. This presentation would include an incredible new feature that will allow you to pull the detail out of the shadows very quickly without being a sophisticated Photoshop user. It would be easy, it would be fun, it would be incredible. And it would be found here under the Image menu, Adjustments, and it would be called Shadow Highlight. You would run this and it would instantly reveal what was hidden in the shadows. You could then dial in any amount and adjust it to the value you were looking for. That would be incredible. You could also adjust the highlights and make them darker. It's like having a mask made for you automatically that separates the highlights from the shadows. You click OK and you're done. What an incredible capability. This is so incredible, there should be an easy way to access this new tool. I, of course, can go up here to Image, Adjustments, and down to Shadow Highlights, but notice there's no keyboard shortcut for this incredible capability. I would like to add one. Of course I can, going over to the Edit menu and down to Keyboard Shortcuts. I can now select Image and scroll down here till I come to Shadow Highlight. Select that and then assign a keyboard shortcut. I'm going to choose something I know Photoshop is not using. I'm going to use the Control, Command, and the number 4 key. It likes that. Of course, if you're a PC user, you might want to try a different keyboard combination. All I have to do now is click OK. I can now use that keyboard combination to instantly bring that new feature back up again. Let's try that on a new photograph. Let's close this image and go to our next image. Okay, let's see how Shadow Highlight will work on an image like this. Let's bring up our Shadow Highlight controls with our quick keyboard shortcut. Just like that. Then as we can see here, we can adjust the amount under the Shadows category here, or the highlights to make the sky darker. So you can make some adjustments here to improve this image. But what's this? Show more options. Well, I'm always looking for more options. Aha! Tonal width and radius for both shadows and highlights. Adjustments for color correction and mid-tone correction. Unbelievable. But you're saying to yourself, how do I use these new controls? I think the best thing to do is to cancel from this and open up another image which might help us understand these controls more accurately. We'll return to that previous image in just a moment, but first I'm going to load a selection I created earlier. I'm going to, of course, use that quick keystroke with the Command or Control key, and clicking here on the Alpha channel will load that selection. Then going to my View menu down here to Extras and hide that selection. Now back here to our adjustments of shadow and highlight. With our quick keystroke, we bring that up. Check this out. With our amount of highlight set to 0, we can focus in on shadows to maybe better understand this. Let's drop our radius to 0 and let's adjust the amount. As you can see here, by adjusting the amount and increasing the value, I am then making it lighter in the shadows. The tonal width, of course, is the number of shades that will be affected by the amount. So if I drop this to 0, I am affecting fewer tones and a greater number of tones. In fact, I start to move in on the midtones and the highlights if I increase this all the way up. Very interesting. Now what is this radius all about? Let's adjust it. As I move it over and stop, let's take a look at the image. In fact, let's zoom in. As you can see, there's this increase in contrast at the edges between shades of gray. It's like neighbors trying to look good next to each other. Yes, good neighbor pixels. The pixels on this side want to look good next to the neighbors on this side. So they talk to each other and they say, how can we look good together? Well, this side says, I'll get darker, and this side says, I'll get lighter. And then they look good next to each other. So this is the good neighbor theory to adjustments. It's called radius. Now that may be a simplified way of looking at it, but you might understand it. The trick is to run this radius and experiment with each image that you're working on, because the results will be different on each image. Let's go back to our image and just see how this might affect that image. I'm going to close this image, and here we are back. Let's bring up our controls again. As you can see here, I can adjust the sliders until I start to achieve the quality I'm looking for. Remember the radius here? Let's adjust that all the way up and see what happens. Makes it look darker, makes it look lighter. But right about here, notice the light changes across the face. You get a really nice lighting happening. There seems to be a perfect position for this image for the radius. Then down here to the highlights, I want to make the sky darker. I can slide this over until the sky becomes darker. Then increase my tonal width to bring in more shades within the image, like this. And then let's adjust the radius. As I said, move it all the way up, and then move it all the way down. And you'll find a place in between that gives you the quality of light you're looking for. Notice that with this current setting for the radius, I have eliminated any haloing that might appear around areas of high contrast. For example, in this case, around this woman's hair and the background clouds. Then next, with color correction, let's bring up the color a bit. Remember, the color will change only in those areas that have been altered by the highlights or shadows. And finally, the last thing I like to adjust is mid-tone contrast. It's a nice little adjustment that brings up the contrast overall within my image. Keep in mind, you can always save and load these settings onto other images photographed with similar lighting. For example, I would click on Load, and then I can load in the settings that I used previously for this image. Then click OK. Now let's close this image and open up my final image. Now, this utility works quite well on those last two images, but you might not think about using it on an image like this. You might think this image looks just fine. I personally believe that you can improve almost any photograph with this new capability. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut now to bring open my dialog. In this project, I want to actually leave the shadows set to 0 and only alter the highlights. I want the clouds to appear with more detail. Look at this. As I move this amount, I can then bring back the detail hidden in the highlights. Adjusting my tonal range starts to move in on the area around the ground and the trees, and then radius starts to move some of the reflections in the water. Again, adjusting my color correction here, I can make the green grass here in the valley appear a little bit more rich, and my mid-tone adjustment. I'm going to click OK. Now let's see what the image looked like before, and here's after. Incredible capability built into one tool. Give this a try and experiment with images which are badly exposed or images that you didn't necessarily think needed adjustment, and you just wanted to try this out because I guarantee you, you will get some amazing results with almost any image.